Good morning. I'm Stephanie Tarani with Dawson Recycling, and I'm the chairman of the board of directors for the Portland Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for sharing your morning with us. These are trying times, but we are lucky to be in such a supportive community with strong leadership and driven businesses where we have the capacity to continue to thrive even during a pandemic. We want to encourage you to watch your Monday Minute and your emails for upcoming educational, promotional, and networking opportunities that will greatly benefit you and your business. This is going to be a very interactive program, and we do welcome questions. So if you have a question for the chief, please type it in the chat box, as we will be monitoring that throughout the breakfast. With that, let's get started. I'd like to ask past chairman of the board, Tammy Shelton, with Risk Resources, to give our invocation. Tammy?
Thank you, Stephanie. Please bow your heads with me.
And if you'd stand in the room.
Heavenly Father, I am so grateful for this beautiful morning, and I thank you for bringing us together today. Thank you for our Portland Chamber of Commerce and all it does to promote our businesses and make Portland a wonderful place to live. Thank you for Chief Cory and all he is doing to keep our community safe. Please guide and protect us as we continue to navigate these uncertain times. But remind us always that you are certain and you are always with us. In your name we pray, amen.
And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
At this time, we'd like to thank all of our elected officials for joining us today. I'd like to recognize our chamber sponsors. We have our, visionary level members, the Port of Corpus Christi, Driscoll Children's Hospital, Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Farmers Insurance with Roxanne Schwartz and Vestalpina. Our cornerstone level members, Chenier, Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, ICA Radio, and our chamber investor, the City of Portland. We also like to recognize our platinum sponsor, the City of Portland, and our food sponsor, Whataburger.
Chief Mark Cory was born at Barksdale Air Force Base in Bossier City, Louisiana, and grew up in Rockport, Texas. After graduating from Rockport Fulton High School, he attended Del Mar College Police Academy and was hired by the Rockport Police Department, where he worked 4 years before enlisting in the United States Army and serving in the Gulf War. Chief Cory returned to Rockport Police Department until he was hired to serve as the Chief of Police in Portland 6 years ago. Chief Cory has over 30 years experience in law enforcement and is a graduate of the Law Enforcement Management Institute of Texas from Sam Houston State University. Graduate of the FBI National Academy 198th session. Holds a Master's Peace Officer certification and received his bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Incarnate Word. Thank you so much, Chief Cory.
Thank you so much for having me this morning. And we've already got some questions that were submitted prior to this morning, and they all deal with the defunding the police and the situations that are going throughout the country right now. So I'll just delve into that, and then we'll get to what's going on here in Portland in a little bit. So some of the questions were, how is this affecting the officers here in Portland, the defunding talk and all the protests and the rioting? The officers here are good. You know, we are very supported by the community here, by the city council, by the city administration. I do have some strong feelings about what's going on throughout the country. It's very disturbing what we're seeing. There's a big difference between peaceful protesting and rioting that's going on throughout the country, and the effects it's having on law enforcement, and it's pretty disturbing. But not to, I guess the biggest thing I'd like to say is you can't politicize law enforcement. And unfortunately, in large cities like Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Chicago, and New York City, there is that's exactly what's going on. They're using law enforcement as a political pawn, and that's very unfortunate that that's going on. The incident that occurred in Minneapolis several months ago was terrible, and the officers that were involved should be charged, and that's the way that goes. But I'll say there's almost 700,000 police officers in the United States of America, with over 10 million citizen contacts throughout every year. And to say that there's not going to be out of those 10 million contacts an issue that arises once in a while, it does happen. And I'll be the first to say, as the chief of police here in Portland, that if an officer does wrong or breaks the law, he ought to be arrested and ought to face the consequences. But all this defunding and all this negative talk, where you can't say blue lives matter or all lives matter, that's not right. I don't agree with that. But some things that have arisen from that, there's a lot of questions on officer training and things of that nature. So I'm gonna touch base on that for a minute. Apparently, some of the states don't require as much training as we do here in Texas. We're already doing the citizen interaction training, the de-escalation training. We've been doing that for years here. And just to touch base on a couple of things. So to be a police officer here in the state of Texas, you have to go to an academy for 6 to 9 months right off the bat. That's the first thing. After that, you have a field training program for most departments that lasts anywhere from 3 to 6 more months. So that's well over a year of training before you ever get on your own to interact with the public. And apparently some of these other states don't require that much training. Here in Portland, we do have, you are certified before we hire you. We do an extensive background check. We do extensive psychological testing before we ever hire that individual. We do an extensive field training program. So before one of our officers gets on the street, we feel that they're very well qualified. There's many, we're governed by TCOL, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement and Education. We have there within TCOL, you can have your basic certification, intermediate certification, advanced certification, and master certification. So my point in saying all this is, here in Texas, officers receive a lot of training that apparently some of the other states, after listening to these news conferences and whatnot, don't require their officers to have as much training like what we do here. So anyway, just to move on from that, because I don't want to get all political with things at this point. But so anyway, we'll move on to some other questions that I saw. One of the questions was, what can we as a community do to support the police department? Well, here in Portland, we are extremely lucky that I've been here 6 years, and I've been in the area for well over 30 or 40 years, and doing law enforcement here. We've the city of Portland, the Portland Police Department has a very good reputation. When I hire an officer, I tell them there's 3 things that you've got to do. And in your 12-hour shift, you do everything you can to protect the citizens, to prevent crime, but most importantly, to interact with the community and promote positive interaction. And I think we're very successful at that. We have a lot of community support, and we're very pleased by that. Another question was, do we receive enough funding from the city? the mayor, the city council, and the administration of the city goes above and beyond to support first responders, not only the police, but the fire department as well. You know, we're funded through the general fund, and there's only so much money available in that fund, but it's always the first responders that the city looks out for when it comes to funding. So we're very pleased by that, and we do have everything we need as far as personnel and equipment. So we're in good shape there. Another question was, have you seen an increase in crime since the beginning of COVID? So COVID had caused an uptick in domestic disturbances in the city. We've seen, I think that's throughout the whole state and country, with everybody working from home and things of that nature. But as far as other criminal activity, right now, Portland, I hate to say the word quiet, that usually brings up issues, but we are, I can say everything is very calm here in the city, crime-wise, and we're in very good shape. You know, even with, I constantly get asked, what about all the industry moving and everything? You know, right now I would like to say it's the way we do our business and do our patrolling that keeps everything calm and everything, but we're not seeing any big uptick right now, as other than the domestic disturbances, and of course the traffic out on the highway. So those are a couple things that have increased. Some other questions. The intersection at Lang and Akins, person asked about that there's been, they've almost had some collisions there. We are aware of that situation. When we monitor that, we actually, one of our patrol cars was involved in an accident at that intersection, so we're aware of that. We're monitoring that, and we'll continue to do so at this point. At some point, there may be consideration of putting a traffic signal at that location, but
Lang and where?
Lang and Akins. Lang and Akins. So, is there any other questions that we have from the audience here or online yet?
We have one that was submitted.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It was, have you and your office and/or your office had to have any specialized training since the pandemic began?
Sure. So the question is, basically how has COVID affected our operations at the police department? So Chief Morris, the fire chief, is the emergency management coordinator for us, for the city, and he has worked with us. Of course, we've got the PPE that's necessary. He has provided us some training. We're wearing masks. We're not only wearing masks out in the public, we're wearing masks in the department as well, because we've had a handful of officers that have contracted COVID and have successfully recovered. But you know, it has caused some issues, like during traffic contacts, where we're trying to maintain our distance, but yet, you know, we still have to enforce the law and do what's required of us. And so we do have hand sanitizers, so that if we do make a traffic contact and we do issue a warning or a citation, we do have the mask. Some of the officers are even wearing gloves at that point, and we do have the hand sanitizers that we're, after every contact, that we are using. So it has impacted us, but not too negatively. We were able to work right through it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
With the things that are going on in the other Portland
Mm-hmm.
and all these big cities, is there not something else that can be done? I mean, the federal government can't go in and do something? I mean, is it just going to go on and on and on?
Yes. So hopefully everybody heard that question. In Portland, Oregon, so they're pushing 90 days of unrest there, and I got to be careful what I say, because I can't interject my political views, you know, while I'm on duty or doing this. But what I can say is that all the police chiefs, all police officers take an oath to enforce the law. But above them, you know, we all have bosses. We all have city managers. We all have mayors and things of that nature. So I feel that in some of those larger cities, the police department and their administration, the chiefs, want to take action and want to control what's going on, but they're restricted by their political leaders,
That
basically.
was the rest of my question, though. Can't the federal government do something more than that?
So the question is, can the federal government do more? Well, the president did bring in some additional federal officers there into Portland. I'm all for that, but the problem is the chiefs let that get out of hand, or I don't know if it was the police chiefs or the city administration let those things get out of hand at the beginning. Okay, to give up a police department, a police substation, is ridiculous, especially in a major city. All that does is create more unrest. And let me go back to that. Remember, you have the protesters that everybody has the right to protest, have no issues with that whatsoever. And then you have the rioters, which are injuring the police officers, shooting lasers in their eyes, throwing rocks, setting police cars on fire, setting police buildings on fire. Completely unacceptable. But the moment that the first substation was given up there in Minneapolis, I personally feel that just fueled the other cities and other protesters to do the same thing in Portland, in Seattle, and those other places. Once they got that, they could see that was acceptable or perceived acceptable in another city. It just fueled the fire of these other big cities as well. And now we see what the consequences are. So personally, here in Portland, we had a rally a month or two ago, a Black Lives Matter rally, and it doesn't matter if it's a Black Lives Matter rally, a KKK rally, which I had to work in Rockport. Which was probably 5 or 10 times bigger than what we had here in Portland. It doesn't matter what rally it is. If you want to have a rally and do it peacefully, 100% for you. We were all out there, made sure everything was calm. But I told the officers, I said, we will not allow anything to get out of hand at all. If there's a violation of the law, you make an arrest and remove that individual. So peaceful protesting, all for it. Rioting and committing criminal activity, totally unacceptable, and it won't be accepted here. That was one of the questions. How are we preventing what happened in Portland, Oregon from happening here? Of course, a much bigger city, but it doesn't matter how big the city is. It's the leadership and the enforcement of laws that keep things from getting out of hand, and buildings being set on fire, patrol cars being set on fire, officers getting hurt. Totally unacceptable. And if it had been, if the laws had been enforced at the very beginning hard, like they should have been enforced on the rioters, I think it would have prevented a lot of this from happening throughout the country. So the governor.
What do we do now?
What do we do now? That's a good question. So it's a difficult situation, especially in the larger cities. Austin, Texas, just voted to defund their police department in Austin, Texas, by 1/3. So the governor stepped in. There's 2 points I want to make on that. They did that on Friday. The governor on Saturday stepped in and said he's going to send in Texas DPS, the troopers in, because he doesn't like that, and he wants to protect the citizens of Austin. So I have two. I'm kind of torn on this. As the police chief, I'm all about protecting the citizens and doing what's right. On the other hand, I feel like, hey, you want to defund the police and take away hundreds of officers? Get some. You want that? Then have at it, and you're going to see what the results are. So I was kind of torn when the governor immediately said he was going to send in troopers. It's great for the citizens that need that, but it sends a message to other political people that they can do that and defund their departments and maybe have the state come in to help them, and that's just not right. That's not right. But like in Seattle, Washington, that chop zone that was 6 blocks, that was crazy if that was ever let to begin in the first place. They should have, law enforcement should have gone in there. And if Seattle PD is not big enough to handle it, call in the state police. And if that's not enough, then call in the National Guard. You cannot allow rioters to take over 6 city blocks of a major city in our country, because that just fuels the rest of these rioters throughout. So, and then the governor here in Texas also had a proposal yesterday that if a city that defunds the police, he's going to restrict their funding through property tax. So he is taking some steps to curtail that. I was pretty surprised that something like that happened here in Texas, to be honest with you. Yes, sir.
Mark, if you look at insurgencies around the world, and you look at the violence aspect of protesting, especially who threw the first rock, how much, in your opinion, of that is outside professional agitators who go from city to city, and the actual violence piece is instigated and led by them, and then you have the people who unfortunately follow a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But how much of that has been seen, and has it been tracked from city to city where you have the same people or type of people or organization involved in that level of the protest?
So just make sure everybody heard the question, and I'll paraphrase it. So basically, it's the question is how much professional rioters are being moved throughout the country into these other cities, causing this. Well, I'll say it. I'll say it's a bunch. I mean, I can't give you the exact number, but I can tell you that when you're watching Los Angeles and they have footage of large pallets of bricks being brought in to use as weapons against law enforcement, that's professional. That's not somebody there locally that's doing that. Those are professional rioters that are being supported by, they're being backed by people with a lot of money above them, and to cause a civil unrest. And I'll say it. I mean, this is I think it's a very we have the president's election coming up, and I'll say this is very political at this point. But I won't delve into it further than that. I'll just say that there's a lot of political backing going on with what's going on throughout the country. Yes, ma'am. Two questions.
How is the city of Portland support by their leaders for y'all, for the police? I mean, are y'all heavily supported?
We're fully supported here in Portland. The city manager was the police chief here for many years, and I worked directly for him. So we have a great relationship, and as well as with the other city management, the mayor and the council. I couldn't ask for any more support than what we get. I mean, we have everything we need. If we need personnel, we have personnel. If we need equipment, we have everything that we need here. We are in great shape here. That's unfortunate to say, 'cause there's a lot of cities around us here in this region that don't have the financial backing or the great support that we have. But we're doing great here in Portland.
Because I'm also worried about y'all's morale. You see all this.
Yeah, sure. The morale's always, and we do talk with the officers regularly. And I have to say that when that happened in Austin last week, our officers at our department were kind of really shocked by that, because that's not something that you'd think that you'd see here in Texas. But I know the Houston police chief put out a deal that all those officers that want to leave Chicago or Seattle or Portland, Oregon, hey, if he's hiring there, come on down here. So, we might pick up some of those officers, but we're in great shape. We're fully staffed, and everything's going very well here. Yes, sir.
Well, as far as the support and that kind of stuff, can you just kind of summarize some of the support that local industry, especially the larger companies that are relocating coming into the area and part of their community outreach?
Sure.
Kind of support, or they provide?
So the question was, are we getting support from the new industry that's moving in the area? And I'll say that's definitely yes. We are getting even some financial support from the industry if we need something that would go outside of our budgetary realm. We have gone to some industry and spoken to them about that, and they do have monies to inject into the community, and we have gotten some financial support from them. And you know, they're good. I mean, they do briefings for our council on a regular basis, and they're there for the community, and you know, whether you like them or not, being here, they are very supportive, and they want to be great neighbors, and so we're good with that. Yes, sir. So here's another question. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the Portland PD over the next few years? So the biggest challenge that, you know, we are a growing community. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we've got, speaking with our city management team, there's some large subdivisions that are on the horizon. And so the challenge for me as the chief in our department is to stay ahead of the curve. We can't ever get behind the curve as far as the number of employees that we have or equipment. And so we're always trying to stay ahead. You know, we're very, I preach to the guys about being very proactive at all times when it comes to enforcement of the law. And so, you know, the challenge is to stay in front of any rise in criminal activity. And we're, you know, here in Portland, we're not seeing that. We're trying to do our best to keep it down, and it is at this point. But I do foresee in the future with the growth, if you have 6,000 people move into our community, that's awesome. Well, that's not 6,000. You know, there's going to be some riffraff in that 6,000 people that we have to deal with, and so we just feel if we stay on top of things that when we have that reputation, that it'll keep those people that we really don't want moving in here, those troublemakers from moving in, and that's what we constantly work towards, is to have a positive outlook for our whole region and the community, and get those good people moving into our community. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think Portland then is to be commended, because from somebody in the know, I found out last month in Corpus, they had 3,000 in the month, 3,000 some kind of assaults or whatever. The month before it was 2,000, and surprisingly, most of it was in the south side.
Yeah.
So if they're having big numbers like that, and we're not really having anything, how wonderful is that for us?
Yeah. So the statement was that the crime on the south side of Corpus is quite on the uptick, and the only thing I'll say to that is that we may have a different way we enforce the law, or the way we do law enforcement, than some of the other cities around us. You know, we're very proactive. If you come into our city and steal from Walmart or Academy, and we catch up to you on the highway, we will pursue you until we stop you and arrest you. You know, you've probably seen that on the news that we've had. You know, we do have pursuits, and you know, people. You know, I've seen. Not that I watch all the social media comments too much, but you know, we do. I am aware of it. And then we have these big chases. You know, the first thing people want to know is why are we in a pursuit? And why was the pursuit? And oh, well, you know, we had a shoplifting. They stole $300 from Academy, and some people don't agree with that. That we pursue criminals like that. But here's the deal behind that: we chase those people and we put those people in jail, because if we don't, then we're gonna have many more people coming from the surrounding area to do those same things. So there's a method to why we do things. You know, if you go and steal a pencil from Walmart, my policy is we'll put you in jail. I don't care if it's $1 or if it's $1,000. If you come here, commit a crime, you're gonna be arrested, and I've been on the news and I've said that, before. We will chase you till we catch you. You're not gonna, you're not gonna outrun our. You might outrun the car, but you're never gonna outrun the radio. We will catch you, and we're not gonna stop until we arrest you if you commit a crime here in Portland. And so some of the departments don't. Well, like in pursuits, they don't really pursue people. And that's how things get out of control, is when you don't enforce the law. It's a felony, first of all, to run from us. You run from the police, it's a felony. You might have committed this minor crime, but the moment you run, that's a felony offense. And we're going to enforce the law. And unfortunately, some of the area departments don't see it that way. And that causes, we've gotten in pursuits and finally stopped people, and they'll say, oh, we thought you were this other police department, and we knew we could run, and then we're going to be enforced. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, some of the things that go on. We'll be in another jurisdiction and request DPS to assist because we're not getting support from that jurisdiction that we're in. So it's an issue. Yes.
Okay. All right, so spinning off the news in Georgia, they've said any interference with first responders is now deemed a hate crime. Was that already a hate crime here, or do we have to wait until we get to that level, then maybe the governor?
I can't quote exactly. I know there is some that there, if it's not already on the books, it is in the process already for that to be here in Texas as well. That if you commit a crime against first responders, that is considered a hate crime.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes.
Second question.
Yes.
The prescription box inside the police station is broken. I know that's not your property, but I don't think there's another one in town for us to drop our old prescriptions. Is there something that you or we could do to, get a new one?
Yeah. We'll talk offline on that.
Okay.
That's an issue with DEA that's who actually we were taking all those drugs to and getting rid of them. The prescription drugs were dropped off there. So there was an issue with that, but okay, we can discuss that on the side.
Third question.
Yes.
Mask enforcement. So let's say Beverly's somewhere, for some reason she doesn't have her mask and she thinks it's inappropriate and she beats her up. Where do we go from that besides simple assault? Because we heard a lot of that on the news, and then just, not quite the knockout game, but still. Yeah.
So the mask enforcement. So what I've instructed the officers to do is to try to educate the people. We've gotten very few calls on this, but if we do, we're just trying to go speak to people and educate them on the situation, on wearing a mask, and get compliance through that way. If somebody's assaults another individual because they're not wearing a mask, then of course they'll be arrested for assault. Does that answer your question? You want more than that? Well, the penal code and the code of criminal procedure only allows us to do so much, so that's what we have to go with. But that's.
I had a friend that had to have the police come and help him get gas because he didn't have a mask on, and they wouldn't let him fill up his car. It was out of town.
Wow. That's. You know what? I mean, you got to be. You can't go overboard on things, but you need to be, compliant and take other people's safety in mind, and wear the mask, keep the social distancing, then yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What is the status of the police in the schools? Are they still going to be there? I've heard that they're not. So can you update us on that?
So the question is that the SROs in the school district, school resource officers. So the school board the assistant superintendent contacted me back in June and said due to budgetary constraints, they were going to remove some of the SROs. So we had 5 school resource officers that worked for the Portland Police Department that we employed that worked as SROs, and then 1 that worked for Gregory PD. And the officer in Gregory PD and 2 of ours were removed from the budget. So we still do have 3 SROs and here in the school district. But I think that there was so much question as to when school was going to go back in session, or if it was even going to go back in. There's a lot of variables that were intermixed in that decision, but we are down to 3 SROs at this point for the school district. Yes, ma'am.
I saw on the DPS marquee, what's a clear code?
A clear code is a missing adult,
Like an adult?
an adult. Amber, an amber code is a missing child. Clear is for a missing adult. Yeah.
So,
Let's see, I had another question. We're very grateful for you and your team. I want to thank you and the police department for your service and keeping our communities. Okay, so that wasn't a question. That was just a statement. And then one of the news agencies, I guess, is watching this, asked, when was the KKK rally in Rockport? And that was about 20 years ago. So that wasn't a recent thing. And so just to clarify that was quite a while back. So just a couple other things, I always promote, it's, society is dangerous right now. It's, we're very lucky here in Portland, but, even for us in law enforcement, we're having trouble getting ammunition and for our department. I mean, we're getting it, but I can only imagine what it is for the civilians out there for if they want to purchase firearms and ammunition. So I always push, if you don't have your license to carry, you need to really think about that very hard, and so that you can protect yourself out there. This was crazy. I saw Chicago PD this weekend had 61 911 calls that went unanswered because of the funding issue, as well as they're trying to deal with some rioting that was going on downtown. So, and that's that's a very, very large city, but 61 people call 911. It could have, from robbery to home invasion or whatever, and they went completely unanswered. So I would, that won't happen here, I assure you, but it is just another reason to be supportive of the Second Amendment and your license to carry.
How hard is it now to recruit new police officers?
So the question is, how hard is it to recruit new police officers? So back in the 90s, whether it was Rockport or Portland, we'd have about 75 to 80 applicants per opening. And then in the 2000s, it dropped down to about 30. So after 2010, we'll get, and this is not us, this is everywhere, maybe 4 to 5 applicants. That's it. There's not a lot of, back 20 years ago, law enforcement was everybody wanted to get into that. I know our fire department is struggling to fill a couple of positions as well. It's just not being a first responder and helping people is not seen to be the priority right now for a lot of this generation that we're seeing. So it is difficult to get good applicants.
And out of that 5, how many qualify?
After we do a background, probably 2 or 3, half of them will be eliminated immediately because they won't meet our standards that we require here in Portland. And so, we've re-advertised. I'm just not going to hire somebody just because, we have 5 applicants, we have 2 that meet our requirements, and we'll start over again. So, but with all this going on around the country right now, there's a lot of officers retiring early. A lot of officers getting out of the big cities where all this defunding and this where they politicize law enforcement. So there's going to be some movement for sure.
So they're not just getting out of there, just go someplace else.
I think, from what I understand, yeah, they're moving elsewhere where they feel supported, and so. But it is difficult right now. I mean, statewide agencies, larger cities down, and us as well. It is difficult to find good applicants. Yes, ma'am.
I know it's impossible, but when will you get back to community training for the different things that you were doing? And I kind of think that would also help re-entice people to the
reports.
Yeah, so the question is, when are we going to get back to community training as far as civilians or
When you would do your
Um,
classes for active shooters or
Oh, yeah,
however
yeah.
we respond or whatever.
Yeah, so COVID kind of put a cramp on that. COVID put a cramp on bringing, I always want all our whole community to do walkthroughs at the police department, do ride-alongs with us. But right now, of course, with this going on, it's kind of curtailed. But as far as, we do have a large Explorers program that we're trying to raise the kids through the high school to either get in law enforcement, go in the military, and bring those assets to us when they, when they get out. So, but as far as like active shooter training and everything, I mean, I like the Zoom stuff. I mean, this is fine, but I'd rather be in a room with 200 or 300 people where we're, but this is still good too. Any other questions?
I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened in St. Louis makes us all a little worried about like protecting our home. We
Yes.
have that
Yeah.
right.
All right, yeah, let me touch base on that. So we're here in the state of Texas. So the question was, what happened in St. Louis where the armed couple came out to protect their property, and then we all know, if you delve into that and look at that district attorney, this is totally a political move. It has nothing to do with that they did wrong. That's a like we talked about earlier, that I can't really delve into. That's purely political. That has nothing to do with they did wrong. But we have the castle doctrine here that you have the right to protect yourself and your home and your property. When I do these active shooter talks, I always talk about the castle doctrine, and people say, talk about, well, somebody's on my property, can I shoot them or whatever? I said, that's, you got to use common sense on this. If you got somebody forcing their way into your home at 2 a.m, they're not there for good. You have the total right to finish up. If you have somebody out there taking mail out of your mailbox or defaming your political sign in your front yard, that is not the time to go use deadly force on those people. Okay, you got to use common sense when it comes to the castle doctrine and how to protect yourself and your home.
And concealed carry class teaches
And the license to carry class definitely teaches that and touches base on that as well. That's true. Yes, ma'am.
So I live in Corpus. I'm from Portland. Appreciate the community. It seems like Corpus or Portland PD is a bit more diligent in following criminals and following up on crime.
Yeah.
And perhaps Corpus is, and the
Yes.
DA, I think,
Yes.
who's in office, is a bit more lenient. And
Yes.
maybe liberal. So do y'all ever clash if somebody leaves Portland, goes to Corpus, like you can't pursue them, and
Okay.
how does that affect?
So the question, the statement was that she's from Portland, but she lives in Corpus now, and how the difference, how we enforce law as what she's seen in Corpus, and especially with their district attorney that they have over there, and how do we clash on that? So I wouldn't use the word clash, but we definitely are different. Like in our pursuits, when we go into Corpus, which a lot of them go into Corpus, I'll be very frank with you. We notify Corpus PD that we're inbound with a pursuit. We request their assistance, and we're denied. Unless I would suspect if it was, if it was a very violent crime that this suspect has committed. But our hope is that when we go in there in a pursuit, that they'll at least throw out some spike strips and get this thing stopped immediately. But that's why at this point we request DPS to assist us if we go into that particular jurisdiction. But myself and Chief Markle, we have a Zoom meeting at noon today with all the area chiefs. So it's brought up and discussed. It's just a different philosophy. We're a lot more. I think we're very proactive in how we our enforcement, and I require all our guys to make 8 traffic contacts in a shift. That's not, and don't, they're out there writing 8 tickets. That is not what I said. I require them to make 8 traffic contacts. I don't care if they write 8 warnings, 8 tickets. That's not the point. The point is that, especially at night, the visibility, if I have 5 officers on and they are out there patrolling and making 8 contacts, minor violations or, DWIs or whatever, whatever the case might be, that there's red and blue lights all over town. You got bad guys coming in from other jurisdictions. They see that, and that helps prevent them from coming through or either going right on through Portland or going somewhere else.
Yeah,
So
perception,
it's a
right.
perception, yes. And when you have, 35, 40 contacts a night, there's red and blue lights all over town, like I said, and it gives that perception that there's more officers out as well. So there's a lot of thought put behind that. And I do wish that we had some more support from, from other jurisdictions, but, it is what it is. But I assure you, if another jurisdiction comes into our city, we're 100% supporting them and doing whatever we can to get the pursuit or whatever's going on stopped immediately. So it's just different philosophies, I guess, on how we do things. Any other questions? Anything else? Oh, one more question.
They stated they can see more state troopers in the area.
Yep.
They support you.
Yes. So the question is, or the statement was that there's a lot more state troopers, DPS in the area. There are, I believe, 25 troopers assigned to this county now. I mean, that's like quadrupled what it was, but because of all the industry moving in and all the traffic and everything. So we do work very closely with DPS, and I do invite them and I do encourage them to come into Portland and work traffic and be seen here as well. Some cities don't particularly like that because for whatever reason, but I encourage that. That's more law enforcement to be seen in our community, and they're always there if we do need, if we do have some type of criminal activity where I need more support, they're there immediately to help us. So they're very supportive, and I'm very thankful for that. Yes, ma'am.
Are we gonna be able to do Shop with the Cop this year?
That's a good question. We're supposed to make that decision in October. So you know what, even if we have to, we're gonna get those kids some help no matter what. The question was if we're gonna be able to do Shop with the Cop this year because of the COVID and the restrictions. But I assure you that no matter what it takes, we'll get those kids what they need, because that's extremely important. That's probably the Shop with the Cop's is one of the best things we do every year, and I couldn't be more pleased every year that we do that. Our whole department engages in that, so it's super, and we will get those kids the help they need no matter what, no matter how we have to do it this year. That will happen. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, I just wanted to let people know that Commissioner Moore, my husband, opened a pistol range at his barn, and it's not open to the public. It is definitely for the police, the DPS, DEA goes out there, FBI, I mean, they go out there and use it. And he's so happy. It's always been there. It was closed down, and so he opened it back up. He's a huge supporter of the police.
We really appreciate that. And that, that's just what we get here in the community. So very thankful for that. So if there's no other questions, I look forward to doing this again soon, and hopefully next time we'll have a big old group somewhere and we can all get together, but Zoom is good as well. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was great. Lots of great information. I love Breakfast with the Chief. We always get some just amazing insight. So we're going around the world in 18 holes, and we hope you come with us. Yeah, we're doing a golf tournament September 25th. You could win a 2020 Jeep Gladiator if you get a hole-in-one, sponsored by Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. So if you're a golfer, you want to sign up for this right away. Also, you could be flocked. I don't know how good you can see this on there, but this is from our ambassadors are doing a fundraiser. Yeah, you might see a bunch of herons in somebody's yard. That means they've been flocked. You can pay to get rid of them. So if this has intrigued you, give us a call. We'll tell you more about it. We have lots of things going on. I know you're anxious to get back to work, get your day started. So I'm not going to keep you very long. Watch your Monday Minute, watch your emails. We are here to keep you informed and keep you, we got some educational stuff coming up from Del Mar, so be sure to watch for that. Have a great day. Remember, we're here for you. You need us, reach out. Have a great day, and thank you for joining us. And thank you again, Chief.
Sure.
Great information. Thank you.